Supreme Court is now allowing Border Patrol agents to remove razor wire installed by Texas along the U.S.-Mexico border. The wire was put up to discourage illegal crossings. The Biden administration argued it hindered Border Patrol agents' ability to process migrants who are already in the country. In a 5-4 vote Monday, the justices overturned a lower court ruling preventing officials from taking it down.
Good evening, John, from the Texas border town of Eagle Pass. This is at the center of this legal fight between the Biden administration and Texas Governor Greg Abbott. This is one of the sections, John, of the U.S.-Mexico border where Texas National Guard soldiers, some of whom you can see behind me, have been setting up and assembling razor wire to repel migrants from swimming across the Rio Grande and entering the U.S. illegally. By suspending this lower court ruling, the Supreme Court is saying that the Biden administration can now remove that razor wire that Texas has put in place to process migrants on U.S. soil. This was a brief order that did not include a legal justification, John, but we do know that the administration had said and argued to the High Court that this razor wire was obstructing and impeding Border Patrol operations, including efforts to process migrants who are already on American soil and to respond to medical emergencies. It's important to note, John, that once migrants get into the middle of the Rio Grande, they're technically on U.S. soil, and Border Patrol has no option but to process them.
The Supreme Court is now allowing border.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the current state of the Biden United States, if you would call it that. Welcome back to another show of the David Khait Show. I'm your host, David, and we are powered and brought to you by the Breakaway USA Network. Make sure that you go follow us on all channels that you can. We never know when we might be taken down here. So I wanted to start this clip essentially, or this show, with showing you that clip, because I don't want to sit here and summarize to you all the details regarding Texas versus Biden. That's how I call it, because it doesn't seem like it's anything else than that. Instead of going into the details of it, I want to talk about what is currently happening on the border after this ruling was passed. I want to talk about why this is happening. And yeah, I mean, this was really controversial for a lot of us. And I think we have our guest in here. Do we have Michelle yet? Ready? Let's see. Maybe not. Okay. So regardless, what's happening on the border is absolutely crazy, right? You have a state being invaded and the sovereignty. Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulties in the background there. So. Okay, so we can't really see Michelle, but no problem. Whenever we fix that, we'll get it going. But anyways, Texas is being invaded through illegal immigrants, right? And the border is wide open. You didn't have this under the Trump administration for various reasons. But as soon as Biden became president, it opened up right away. Essentially, as soon as Biden became president, he dropped all the policies such as Remain in Mexico, Title 48, 49, whatever it is, essentially, that would not allow illegal immigrants to cross the border. Because once they cross the border, once they're on United States land, now it is our responsibility to deal with them. And the Biden administration essentially said, hey, listen, the border is wide open, so we're going to let everybody in. And I have Michelle with us that's going to help us talk about this segment here. So Michelle, thank you for joining us. You're a reporter with Real America's Voice. It's so exciting to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for talking about this. Not enough people are talking about it. And I don't understand how.
No, exactly. That's the thing. And the people that are talking about it seems like they're just repeating the same talking points. It's like, yeah, look at this ruling that happened, but nobody's actually getting into the details of it. So Michelle, a week after this horrendous ruling from the Supreme Court, can you tell us what is actually going on in the border there?
Yeah, it's a lot worse than obviously the mainstream media is trying to tell you it is. We are seeing record amounts of people crossing the border. In fact, looking at the data, and the Biden administration releases this data. They actually released the most recent data on Friday, and they did it on Friday because Friday is usually the day, if you have a PR background, you might know this. Friday is the day that you release something if you don't want it to get a lot of buzz. Usually it's because it's something bad. So coincidentally, the Biden administration had released the data for the number of people illegally crossing the border on Friday. Take a look at these numbers. I actually wrote it down because I was so shocked, and all of us should be terrified over these numbers. And again, you're not hearing about this, you're not seeing this. 371,000 nationwide encounters in December alone. That is the highest ever. That is a record-breaking number of migrants crossing over here into America illegally. And of those,
hold up, Michelle, hold up. You said thousands, 370,000, right?
371,000.
Let that sink in, guys. I mean, when you see a crowd of 100 people, you already think that's big. You're inside of a stadium, right? 30,000, 40,000. Go to your college football games, 30, 40, 50,000. That's a lot of people. You said 370,000 people?
In December alone, David.
In 1 month alone. Okay. All right. Keep going. That's just, I wanted to sink in.
I think that I'm happy you did do that because it's important to know. And, of those 371,000, 8,600 were Chinese nationals. 8,000 of those were single adults. So you basically, and that's just December alone, you look at all of the numbers total, you basically have an army of people willing to fight. These are single adults coming in. And, David, everyone always says, well, it's people seeking asylum. It's just these southern countries. No. Ben Bergquam, who is a host of Law and Border, Real America's Voice, he actually encountered someone who had admitted that he was a terrorist. He came here from Afghanistan. And Ben Bergquam found this out while he was covering the border. He tried calling Border Patrol. He was on the phone for about an hour and a half, could not get a hold of someone to report this guy. He gave a fake name at the border. It's a mess. And, everybody thinks this doesn't relate to them. It does. Every single town is a border town now.
Michelle, it seems like everything that you're bringing forward right now is the complete opposite of what the Biden regime tells not just us, but the overall American people, because we've heard the narrative over and over be propagated that it's a bunch of people from Latin America and South America that are fleeing economic issues, that are fleeing climate issues. That's always my favorite one from our border czar, Miss Kamala Harris over there. She's always telling us that the reason there's so many illegal immigrants crossing the border is because of issues in South America. But you said how many people from China?
8,600, and that's in December alone.
And that's December alone. It's so important that people understand that this is just in 1 month. These numbers is not the full year or the entire Biden regime's administration. It's in a single month. I mean, that is crazy. So, Michelle, I want to play a clip for us of Tucker explaining why illegal immigrants are crossing into the United States. Not why, but why are Democrats not opposed to this? Why they're actually promoting this? And while we play it, I want you to think of why are they coming here and why are they coming here, but why are Democrats so happy about them coming in here? Can we play that Tucker clip for us, please?
You need to understand. Yale University released a study last week by 3 researchers, all of them liberal, I believe, who concluded that the actual number of illegal aliens in this country is not 11 million. It's north of 22 million. 22 million. Fact 1. Fact 2. The Democratic Party is now, as a matter of policy, calling for the legalization of all illegals in this country, citizenship voting rights, 22 million new voters. Fact 3, the overwhelming majority of first-time immigrant voters vote Democrat. Fact 4, the largest margin in American presidential history was 17 million votes, 1984 election between Mondale and Reagan.
And Reagan, yeah.
17 million. You would add to our voter rolls 22 million at least. Wow. Permanent electoral majority in perpetuity. That's what this is about. It's not about making the country better, serving our labor needs, helping the population. It's about putting Democrats in power forever. That is the truth of our immigration debate, period. The numbers you need to understand.
Michelle, okay, so when you hear Tucker saying this, what do you think? Do you agree with him? Do you see any other reason why Democrats are so welcoming for illegal immigrants to come into our country?
Look, David, it's obvious. And that's what's so baffling is that people don't understand what's going on. You hear of the great replacement theory and, everyone wants to say, oh, put on our tinfoil hats, but it's true. It's happening. Think about it. We can completely change the voting. I guess you could say, wow, I'm really stopping here, but the complete electorate, we could completely change that. If we are able to bring in all these people, they're able to legally vote. I mean, it's relatively obvious. And it's even more interesting. Cubans notoriously and historically are known to vote Republican. So I think this was a few years ago. There were a lot of Cubans trying to flee and come over to America. And, let's think about it. Kamala Harris, Biden welcomes in every illegal immigrant. Kamala was telling the Cubans to go home. Why do we think that is?
Seems like they're not voting how they want to. And I know Fabian is smiling behind the scenes here. He's Cuban, right? And he perfectly understands this because Cubans, they know what communism is like, what socialism is like. They're fleeing that, coming to America. And they don't want that here, or the Democrats don't want that here because they're the ones that are promoting socialism here and in a larger scale of communism. I think you're on point here because, listen, it's at some point, I feel like a president is going to sign some type of amnesty deal. And overnight, you're going to have millions of illegal immigrants suddenly have the right to vote. And who are they most likely going to vote for? Democrats. And it seems like we're in this constant cycle with them. I want to switch gears just for the last minute here is that we saw Republicans finally take some action. I mean, I always beat down Republicans for not doing anything when they have the power, not anything, but they're not doing what they can do with the power that they have. Yeah. But now they filed articles of impeachment against the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. What is your thoughts about that?
I love that we're taking action. It's great. However, the biggest question, will anything actually happen out of this? That's ultimately, we love to see the first step, but what will the results be? And that's what I think we have to be careful of. I think we have to hold our elected officials' feet to the fire here and ensure that they are doing everything correctly because he should be impeached. What he's doing is illegal. He is destroying this democracy, our nation. I mean, it's baffling how this man has gotten away with so much.
I agree. And my thing is that he has to uphold the Constitution, and not just him, but every single person that's in the administration with Biden. And I feel like this goes all the way up, not just to Kamala Harris, but to Joe Biden. So I'm glad that they're starting somewhere because I definitely, we're always in this balance of like impeach Biden, but then you get Kamala if you impeach Biden and you're successful with actually doing that. So I'm glad they're starting a little lower, going right to the problem because it's unlawful what he's doing. He's violating his oath. And I appreciate you so much, Michelle, for coming into this segment to tell us everything that's happening at the border. Michelle, where can people listen to you, find you, all that good stuff?
Real America's Voice. We were live at 4 today. We'll have a lot of good stuff there. You can also follow me on Instagram, Michelle Backus _. You got it right there. You guys are ahead of the game. I love it. As well as Twitter. Lots of updates coming. Lots of exciting stuff this month. So
every morning, the best thing that I see is your tweet of Happy Monday or Happy Tuesday, whatever it is. Joe Biden
one of these days, maybe it'll work, right?
It sure will. Michelle, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. All right, to go to our next segment here, 3 U.S. troops killed in Jordan in a suicide drone attack. All the details for that coming up after our commercial break. So I'm a big fan of domestic issues and foreign issues. And it seems like a lot of folks, even people on my side of the aisle, can distinguish the two from each other. So what a better way to separate the two than to have a beautiful commercial break like that after Michelle came here and told us the biggest problem that we're having in the United States. Now let's go to a geopolitical issue, something that's impacting us in a different country, not the United States. And to my America First crowd, which I am a big proponent of America First, I always say that if we didn't have this innovative America First policy that Trump brought in 2015, 2016, Republicans would just continue losing. America First, it's so great. And anybody that denies America First, they kind of get put in a place where it's like, okay, well, what do you mean then? Is some other country first? Should we not care about America at all? But America First doesn't mean just America only. I would like to separate those two camps from each other because when you look at President Trump, and we'll get into the details of it in just a second, he's America First, not America only. And I understand always being discouraged by the nonstop interventions that we've had, all these neocons, and I would also consider neo-libs. partaking in these warmongering rhetorics and just making money off defense contracts and whatnot. I understand all of that, and I understand where the hatred for being involved in other countries comes from. But it's also important to understand when it's actually our interest, because as America first, we also need to be out on the global scale. Not a globalist in terms of that, but just understanding maybe having certain partnerships is the best thing for us because it secures us. So over the weekend, we saw horrible news. Nobody ever wants to see that American troops were killed in a different country. And you don't want to see that in America either. You don't want to see that at all anywhere. But 3 U.S. troops were killed in Jordan by a suicide drone attack that was launched by Iranian-backed militant groups. And you keep hearing about Iran. You had one group of senators right away come out and say, hey, let's strike Iran right away. You have another group of people saying we shouldn't do a single thing. They're actually questioning why we're in there. So I want to play a quick clip from Fox News that kind of perfectly illustrates this entire perspective of what's happening across, or what's happening in the Middle East for us. Let's play this.
Just jump right in, get your take.
I got to tell you, we are not looking for a war with Iran. I mean, Iran is sitting there and saying, we can do whatever we want to these people. Look, Joe Biden is terrified of escalation. He really is. He's proven it time and time again. He says, we will not tolerate it. We will respond, except for the 165 times that they hit us in Iraq and Syria, with many of our soldiers with traumatic brain injury, which is a lifelong injury. And then 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden's beating his chest and he says, Iran got the message. And that was a couple months after Sullivan says, you know, everything's quiet in the Middle East. I mean, we are clueless and feckless on the world stage. We've given Iran a pass because we don't want to get involved in World War III. And I think it was Mike Pompeo who said this morning, we may not be at war with Iran, but they're at war with us. And so we've got to try to thread this needle in a way where we recognize they attack us with impunity. We now have soldiers who are dead. They are not stupid. What they did with their drone, they followed an American drone that was returning home to Jordan, and they literally followed it, and the Americans didn't see it, and it killed 3 servicemen and injured 34 others. We've got American hostages being held by Hamas. We don't even know if they're dead or alive at this point. And the latest thing is Joe Biden says, today, it was wholly uncivilized. Give me a break. Right. Get in there and start fighting. And let me just say one more thing. What did Trump do? He killed Soleimani. What did Trump do? He enforced the sanctions. He is the person. If we look at the chart of where Iran was financially under Biden and what they are doing now under Trump and where they are now with Biden, it's very clear. They hurt when we bleed them financially. And what we allow them to do is to sell oil on the open market, give them $6 billion of money for the hostages. And today, Biden had nothing on his schedule. Nothing. Did he call the families? What did he do?
Incredible commentary right there. Let's look at this from 2 different scenarios. You have the situation under Trump, and then you have the situation under President Biden, right? And it's very clear the difference between the two. Right now, with President Biden, we look weaker than ever before. I think even Obama didn't look this weak when he was presenting his foreign policy. Jimmy Carter is the last president that I can remember that was this weak. He literally just do whatever you want to America. We won't do a single thing to you. And I hate to say this, and I have to call it out, that the folks on my side of the aisle sometimes sound just like that, right? Saying, why are these servicemen over there? Why do we have air bases in Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, right? We shouldn't be there. Guys, when we have 3 soldiers, U.S. troops killed by an Iranian-backed militant group, the first thing that you say is shouldn't be, why are we there? Shouldn't be Biden doing awful, right? He shouldn't respond or anything like that. It's very clear to us that the reason why this is happening is because we are weak. we're giving this rhetoric out to the public, especially to the international community, that, hey, you can hit us, you can hit our shipping routes, you can damage our economy, no problem. We won't do a single thing about it. And okay, yeah, we responded in Yemen, but if you actually looked at the response in Yemen, not what the media told you, and you actually internally saw the damages caused by our powerful Navy, you would see that that was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. It's almost like, and somebody actually told me this the other day, it's almost like there's some kind of back channel talk between the Biden regime and Iran's regime, where it's like, okay, yeah, attack our bases and then give us some sitting ducks that we can easily hit. And that won't cause too much damage to you, so we can continue this thing over and over. Let's look at how President Trump did this. When the war in Syria was happening, before Assad could even think about using chemical weapons again, what did we do? We sent 52 cruise missiles and destroyed any capability. We literally turned them into a sheet of glass, as Dr. Gorka likes to say. Bombed Soleimani when we had the opportunity, right? And what people on my side of the aisle will call President Trump suddenly a neocon, a neolib, a globalist, an interventionist. No, there's a philosophy behind foreign policy that if you swing too much to one of the other sides, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Isolationist is just as bad as an interventionist. But there's some kind of middle balance between those. And that's what we had 4 years with President Trump. President Trump found the perfect balance between being an isolationist and being an interventionist. So my thing that I want to take up with the people on my side of the aisle is that if you're advocating for an isolationist foreign policy, then I want to hear you kind of criticize President Trump, because President Trump is not an isolationist. He's not an interventionist. And that is the weird balance that we keep finding ourselves with presidents that are not President Trump. President Biden. I mean, you decide, one day isolationist, one day interventionist. You figure it out how you want to. Bush, Obama, all of them had extreme foreign policies. So I want to cue up this next video because Dr. Sebastian Gorka perfectly laid out this exact perspective in literally a minute or so. So let's roll that clip. It shows the perfect balance.
If we were in the White House, the people responsible for that attack would be dead by now. We wouldn't say, we'll do something about it. We will decide what's appropriate. We didn't talk. We acted. When 300 Russians were running around Syria, destabilizing the region, we killed them. When chemical weapons were about to be used again against civilians by the Assad regime, we didn't invade. We deployed 52 cruise missiles and turned that airbase into a sheet of glass. We sent a message to dictators around the world. Cross that line, and we come down on you like the hammers of hell. The world is on the precipice, my friends. And I'd like my fellow Americans who are conservatives, who love America, to understand what we did in the White House under President Trump. I would like people like Candace Owens to appreciate the reality of the world and not to tweet things such as Generation 9/11 has grown up and we aren't falling for this anymore. Our world has not been made safer, better, or more secure by these never-ending war crusades. That says maybe, but here's my response to you and anyone who says a response is not demanded of America. Not all violence is inappropriate, Candace, unless, of course, you believe America doesn't have enemies who wish to destroy us. We didn't invade other countries, not for 4 years, because that's not what we believe. America first doesn't mean neoconservatism put first. But when we see bad things happen that endanger our interests or the interests of our friends, we will kill evil actors. Because sometimes foreigners must die. And when you kill our servicemen, I don't care why they're there. That's not an excuse to kill them. Who the hell do you think you are? DMing me saying, oh, well, what were they there to do with in the first place? I don't care. That's not my responsibility. I didn't send them there, but they're still Americans, like the Americans who were taken hostage as civilians. by Hamas, who are still being kept hostages as that senile old cretin in the White House bumbles his way to the election.
That is powerful. I mean, Dr. Korka laid that out perfectly. Listen, again, there's a fine balance between isolationist and interventionist. There's a good middle ground in between it. And it's not tiny, tiny, tiny. It's a pretty big place, essentially, where you can find the appropriate balance between the two. But the response should not be that when Americans die, that we don't do anything and we start to question, because we're the generation of 9/11ers. Why are we there? Is this another way to get us into wars? Listen, 3 American U.S. troops, these are our boys, gals, everything, were killed by Iranian-backed militant groups. And the first thing that those who call themselves America First crowd says is, why are we there? Seriously, have we lost every value and every meaning that it means to be America First? Again, America First is not America only. And that is an important thing to say there. And especially when it involves American lives, regardless, again, why they're there, it's American lives that were killed, destroyed by people who hate you, hate the West, hate every value that you mean for. And yes, the West has become very progressive. So you may say, okay, whatever, screw the West. But the West is where your conservative values still thrive. Although they may pressure you, they may take away all these different rights, you still are able to have conservative values, and they hate you for that. As much as the progressives hate you for that, the terrorists hate you even more for that. And it's important that we don't have a weak, supposed to be leader in the White House making these decisions. God, it just really pisses me off. I hate to show so much emotions, but it's necessary because both sides of the extreme aisle here are just not seeing the problem for what it is. So I want to end this segment with one simple statement: peace through strength, something that not a single president except President Trump has shown to understand. You've heard Dr. Gorka lay out every single time that we've intervened in a foreign country. And it's not just limited to the Middle East. We've done this in China. We've done this in Venezuela, for example, right? It's important that when people go out of line, that the United States checks them back in line and not bomb them to threads and not do a single thing about it. There's an appropriate response to it. You want to kill our U.S. troops, then you're going to have to deal with your entire community being turned into sheet of glass. Thank you, Dr. Korka, for that good phrase there. So we'll be back after another commercial break for a little bit lighter things, right? As foreign policy and things like this always get people triggered, gets emotions flowing, and that's good. It's important to allow that to thrive. We've covered domestic issues. We covered foreign issues. We'll be right back with our cultural war issues after this short break. All right, welcome back. You know, our commercial breaks are so short and sweet because we don't want you going anywhere. But at the same time, I just don't want to overwhelm you nonstop with my voice. It's good to have a little break sometimes, right? I mean, maybe you can think about this as you go into the restroom during class. You're like so bombarded with everything the professor is saying. It's like, okay, you know, you may not actually need to go to the bathroom, but let me get a break from you. Okay. So we had our break. We talked about our domestic issues. We talked about our foreign policy, everything that's happened geopolitically, essentially. And next week, we'll actually go deeper into the topic of why it's America's interest and why it's important, just a larger scale of the geopolitical issue. But let's get into one of the most important segments that's gonna shape, I believe, the 2024 election, and that's the culture wars between the ultra progressive crowd and just in general, anybody that's conservative, traditional, maybe you find yourself center right, and perhaps neither of those fit you, but you're definitely not aligned with the ultra progressive stuff. Maybe you're a social liberal, whatever it is. Culture wars strike you on a daily basis, meaning that for some, you know, I forgot the exact percentage of Americans who are politically driven, but a lot, that's more than 60% of the people who participate in elections are not these political fanatics, right? So pop culture tends to be the way that they get their messaging, that they get their news, that shapes their ideas and perceptions, right? So you may have heard of this story over the weekend that the number one rapper in America right now is Ben Shapiro. Who would have thought that Ben Shapiro would be the number one rapper in America? And the funniest thing about it is, I wish we had this clip. It's about 7 years ago. He literally came on stage and debated and said, yeah, rap is terrible. It's horrible. Anything related to hop, it's bad. I mean, there's no symphony behind it. There's no appropriate like words. Everything is just horrible in general, right? And then he partners up with a rapper to create a rap song. So can we cue up that first clip of Ben Shapiro actually commentating about his rap? There it is. All right, let's play it.
Sup. That's right. All you folks have been sticking around for my hip hop talk because, after all, I am America's number one hip hop artist. Dr. Dreidel, Ben and M, Jupac, Ben with the Benjis. That's right, for shizzle. We're here to talk about the number one song in America, according to iTunes, and that is Fact, my boy Tom McDonald. Now, I'll admit, my boy Tom did most of the heavy lifting on this song, but I was present, and indeed, I did rap. And I've contended before that if you can speak to a beat, you can rap. And this is a meritocracy right here. And so I present to you, without any further ado, the number one song in America. Facts. Sup.
All right. So, like we want to, let's present his song. I'm not sure exactly what clip I gave you, but let's skip to Ben Shapiro's part in the song because I want you guys to listen to the actual lyrics. Yeah, it's cool. It's awesome. It's a rapper, whatever it is. But listen to the lyrics because the lyrics is what makes the song actually powerful, very influential. All right, let's play this.
They call me offensive, controversial. It's only two genders, boys and girls. They can't cancel my message because I'm the biggest independent rapper in the whole freaking world. Claim that I'm racist, yeah, alright. I'm not ashamed because I'm white. If every Caucasian's a bigot, I guess every Muslim's a terrorist. Every liberal is right. I don't want to talk to folks who don't get it. Go woke, go broke, no hope, it's pathetic. Pro-choice, pronouns, pro-love, you're progressive. But you ain't pro-gun, no one to protect it. Where the American flag's at? Remember when people would hang those? They've been taken down, they all been replaced with BLM flags or a rainbow. This ain't rap, this ain't money, cars and clothes. We ain't selling drugs, we ain't gonna overdose. We ain't pushing guns, ain't promoting stripper poles. We won't turn your sons into thugs or your daughters into hoes. I don't care if I offend you. I was put here to upset you. You can cry and you can scream, you can riot in the streets. You defunded the police, now there's no one to protect you. I hope I offend you. I ask myself what would Ben do? Let's just keep it real, facts. Don't care how you feel, man. If you want my pronouns, I'm the man who don't respect.
Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Liz, so my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a whack. Dog, it's a yarmulke. Homie, no cap. Look at the graphs. Look at my charts. You're blowing money on strippers and cars. You going to prison. I'm on television. Dogs, no one knows who you are. Keep hating on me on the internet. My comment section all woke Karens. And I make racks off compound interest. Y'all live with your parents. Nikki, take some notes. I just did this for fun. All my people, download this. Let's get a Billboard #1.
This ain't rap. This ain't money.
All right.
Cars and clothes. We ain't selling.
That is good. We can cut it there. So just quick little notes there, right? He said that my pockets are like Lizzo. My money is fat. That's hilarious, first of all. And then he says something about, homie, it's a yarmulke, no cap. Again, hilarious, right? But why are we talking about this? Why am I giving this time? Again, some of us, and let me actually restart this a better way. Some of us are convinced and we perceive messaging differently through different forms. For example, myself, I really like long form podcasts. I like when people get into the actual details of the argument, of the controversial topics, whether it's political, social, LGBTQ issues, abortion issues, whatever it is, right? But then you have to think about these not such politically fanatic individuals who are still going to participate at large numbers in the 2024 election. So if podcast isn't their best form of receiving the political message or being guided towards the right candidate, then what is our other option? Well, we have another option. It's a film, right? We've all seen different movies, films, whatever it is, with a hidden agenda behind it. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good, right? Depending on what side of the aisle you're really on, right? I want you guys to think about the movie What is a Woman? Or it's a film, actually. To how many people that are not politically driven, but have noticed some type of messaging in our current society that, hey, you know, if a woman or if a dude decides he's a woman, then he is. And you kind of scratch your head about it and you say, okay, I'm not going to go listen to Ben Shapiro. I don't even know who Ben Shapiro is. And then you come across a film, What is a Woman, where a dude essentially goes all over the world, not just the United States, and tries to find out what is a woman. You're going to watch that. You're going to love it most likely because, again, it's not a podcast. It's not some conservative right winger telling you, just sitting there for an hour and a half, just talking. It's a film. It's a film that goes out, makes fun of this ridiculous thing that we can't define what is a woman. And next thing you know, maybe people who are not politically driven at all, or maybe people that are on the opposite side of our aisle are suddenly saying, hey, you know what? Republicans make sense or conservatives make sense. And they don't know that. They're not saying Republicans and conservatives. They're just saying, wow, I agree with Matt Walsh. Wow, I agree with this ideology and this philosophy. And then they find out about us conservatives. And all of a sudden, they're going to be voting with us, right? That's exactly how I see music. Maybe Ben Shapiro tapped into something that more conservatives should try to tap into, which is this hip hop, pop culture side of this cultural war. Because again, I mean, you can reach a limited amount of people through the podcasts and these talk shows. Film has a great influence on people, right? They perceive the message a little bit differently. And maybe with the hip hop rap stuff, it's the same thing. Now, it's a long shot, but who knows? Maybe somebody that has only heard bad things about conservatives, has only heard horrible things about Ben Shapiro. Look how ultra conservative and traditional he is, all this stuff and whatnot. And then they see this rap song, they're jamming their head to it, like, whoa, who is this? And then oh, Ben Shapiro, what the heck? Or maybe they don't know who Ben Shapiro is, right? And they're like, I really like this. And the lyrics sound different. And then they start to look it up and boom, they come across Ben Shapiro. Guys, I think that this is the best way how we can fight these cultural wars, because there's not an option not to fight it, because otherwise we're just going to let these Swifties do everything essentially, right? Just influence all these people who are, again, not politically driven, but will be voting in the 2024 election. I think this is a phenomenal way how conservatives can start to actually fight in these culture wars rather than just saying we're fighting culture wars. Really, that's what I always see, is that people saying we're fighting the culture war, but what are you doing? Don't get me wrong, there's a big parallel economy, but I almost feel like that's not a culture war. That's just a push, a reactionary pushback to us being abused and constantly being told, hey, this is what you're going to have to do. And this is the products that you're going to be buying with the messaging that they're buying, right? This is a great tool for the culture war here. Guys, that wraps it up for the David Khait Show. Make sure that you smash the like button wherever you are. Retweet this if you're watching this on X. Please go follow the network that allows us to do this, allows us to bring this great message to you guys. Breakaway_USA everywhere. We're even on TikTok for as long as they're going to allow us to be on there. And please go follow me, David_Khait1 on Instagram. You can find just David Khait by typing it in on YouTube, all other channels and whatnot. It was a great time. I love talking about domestic issues, foreign issues, and getting into the cultural pop things and whatnot. Guys, it was a great day. It was a great time. Thank you for our guests. And if you have any feedback for us, you know where to find us. David Khait is out. Thank you.
This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
President promised help is on the way. And today, help has arrived.
to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.